Good evening and greetings from New York. Welcome to StarCast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, reporting in from Kingston with the edition accompanying the December 12th weekly horoscope and a short article that somewhat sums up the topics I'm going to talk about in this program. Though I am taking it light on the article writing this week as I am wrapping up the written portion of the 2025-2026 annual edition called The Awakening. Somewhat incredibly, I finished Aquarius this morning, around noon or so, and I am down to Pisces. So that's an ebook called The Awa, which is available for instant access upon purchase, and 11 of these signs and going strong. This is my 26th year of writing annual horoscopes. I guess you can call them horoscopes. They started kind of as a monthly length, about 150, 200 words per sign in 1999. And then fairly quickly, the project grew into a website and more detailed interpretations every year as I got a handle on how to do this, which is largely a matter of mastering the solar house system. As Patrick Walker said, and as I have stolen for classes and articles, it's all in the houses. Because the houses tell you what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about when you have, for example, a Mars-Venus opposition. For an individual, I can describe some of the general conditions of that Mars-Venus opposition as we're having now. It passed a little bit earlier this week. But when we get into the houses, the solar houses and the whole sign houses, that is where the astrology gets specific and where I can go into depth. These readings are getting about 18 hours each of my writing time. I started to pick up the pace, and they started to take fewer hours with the Saturn-ruled signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. Saturn is one of my best friends in all of astrology. It better be. I would never trust an astrologer who wasn't good friends with Saturn. And so I was a little bit behind, and those two, I won't say they wrote themselves. I have to breathe life into them, like in the first 2,000 words. And then by the time the first 2,000 words are written, they pretty much take on a life of their own. And the structure of the story that I'm telling is told in the houses, and I use my journalistic skills to prioritize the order in which I'm going, and like the order in which I cover certain issues, and my fiction writing skills to develop the story. How does this story about you develop in these readings? And so that's the art of doing these readings. I've also introduced delineations of a number of minor planets that I have not talked about much. I'm doing that a little bit less in the last few signs that I have written, but there are some fabulous delineations in the Libra reading. I delineate the deep space points in Sagittarius, in the Sag reading. And every one of these readings has something that's just really special. I mean, it has to be interesting to me to write it, since I can write about anything I want. And so, therefore, I must be, alert and enjoying the process throughout the writing process, even when it's a biatch like Scorpio. It took me like 2 days to write the first 1,000 words of Scorpio, and then I wrote Libra and threw the whole thing out and started over again. And then Sag, I love writing for Sagittarius. It's great to write for Sagittarius. a very natural affinity for that. I've got a lot of asteroids in Sagittarius and a fantastic Jupiter. But then when I got to Capricorn, and I began with the line Pluto in Capricorn, holy mother of God. From there, it was pretty much a straight shot. These readings are, I don't know if you've ever read a really good astrology book. I mean, there are not very many really good astrology books anymore, but if you know of one, please write to me and send me the title. But I mean astrology books that are so insightful, that just burst into flames in your hand, or that are a healing journey just in the reading process, or that read with the kind of engaging writing of a good novel. That's really what I am aspiring to do. And then I tell this story that is shaped around and based around a view of the solar system that I treat as a kind of a plot scenario of your life. And so it is, in effect, fiction writing, but it is fiction writing that is based on a true story, and we all love those. And so I promise you, if you have never read my annuals, this is the year to get it. And if you meekly appreciate my astrology, this is the thing to get. Now, when I'm done with Pisces, then I'm going to spend the rest of the year doing the audio readings, and the audio readings fill in the blanks on the written readings. Now, some of these written readings are they're hanging out around 6,500 words. That's 17 pages, right? These are designed to be printed, kept, taken ownership of, underlined, studied. They come with the chart, and if you have your chart, you will know so much more. And I've included information about how to relate them to your natal chart, how to use them as transit readings in your natal chart. But anyway, I'm going to start the audio readings, it looks like, on Monday, if all goes according to the plan. And those will do two things. They're going to kind of summarize the written reading in succinct terms. They will cover any specifics that I may have missed, but mainly I'm looking at the audio readings as focusing on vocation, career, professional calling, and business. That's going to be helpful, because what we have coming in 2025 and 2026 is, believe it or not, a whole new era of the digital and AI environment. When Uranus gets into Gemini, which it last did in 1942, when computers were used to win World War II, to beat the Nazis, to crack the Nazi code, which would have taken, I don't know how many thousands of years with very skilled conventional mathematicians. The calculations could be done much, much more quickly using computing devices. And so when Uranus and Saturn get into Gemini around 42, the speed of computer science leaps forward unbelievably quickly. And I sum this up in the end of the ebook, The Awa. That was, I was sitting here, when was that? It was about 2 months ago, right at this very desk, and I thought, when does Uranus go into Gemini? And I looked it up, and I'm like, okay. And then the next question is always, and when was the last time Uranus was in Gemini? So I kind of jumped back using IOSprite and wound up in 1942. And I have read this history and went back and looked at it again, and then dug out a chronology of computer science so that I could get specific events that occurred in 42 through 49, and ended the Awa with a summary of Uranus in Gemini. And what I can tell you is that the changes that are coming in the computing technology sphere are unimaginable to anyone except someone like Arthur C. Clarke or Philip K. Dick, who were way, way ahead of their times, and they understood that there would be very sophisticated voice interfaced artificial intelligence devices that would start to become indistinguishable from humans. But as I say in this book, The Awakening, the Awa, we are becoming like these devices more than they are becoming like us. Before I get into the astrology of the full moon and Mercury stationing retrograde, one last point. I believe that the primary, most serious, most significant spiritual issue of our day is this sudden takeover of consciousness, of business, of relationships, of art, of music, and of writing by artificial intelligence, by first digital devices and computing devices, and then by sophisticated search algorithms. And now we've gone from search into synthetic, elaborated responses. And if you see those things coming up in Google and you happen to know more than the response, you will find mistakes, but they are written very convincingly. And one of the things that The Awakening does that I have not been able to do until this time, because really the urgency wasn't there yet, and now as the years go on, and I'm now in my kind of my 9th year of very serious investigation of media studies, I am seeing that this is the digital realm, generative AI, the entire AI environment is by far the most compelling and crucial spiritual issue to face the human race that I could ever imagine, because it came on so totally and so fast and is so completely disorienting. And these readings are a guide to how to keep yourself, preserve your humanity, and your sanity in the face of this basically torrent, this deluge of synthetic thought that has infiltrated everything we do and everything that we are. Okay, so here we are at this little cluster of events, a little mini cluster that includes the Gemini full moon at 4:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday morning. So therefore, overnight, Saturday to Sunday, the luminous, highly polarized, very exciting charge will be in the air on Saturday night into the exact moon-sun opposition on Sunday, again, just pre-dawn Eastern Standard Time, followed a little less than 12 hours later by Mercury stationing direct in Sagittarius. So we've got, first of all, I have not made a careful enough note of this, so I'm going to base much of Planet Waves FM on this aspect. We have Jupiter in Gemini retrograde and Mercury in Sagittarius retrograde. If you know any astrology, you know that Mercury rules Gemini and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. The two planets are occupying one another's signs. In effect, they have switched places. When they are in mutual reception, they can be read alternately, either way. Either one can fill in the position. It's a little like castling in chess, but fancier. And you don't lose anything, and there's no limit. You can only castle once in a chess game. There can be as many mutual receptions as there are in a chart, but this is a big one. And so we've got Mercury and Jupiter in this kind of, well, Melanie Reinhardt calls it a hostage situation where the two planets are kind of locked in this karma. They're both retrograde. And where this came up was in the chart for the murder of Brian Thompson a couple of weeks ago. and it is a very strange chart. I'm going to be reading this on Saturday night on Planet Waves FM. I think this is one of the strangest and most revealing charts since the 9/11 chart with the Mercury-Saturn mutual reception. All right, as for the full moon, we have the sun at 23 degrees and 53 minutes of Sag, and that is approaching the galactic center. The galactic center is about 4 degrees away, but you give a wide orb for the galactic center, and so therefore, all through early next week, really now through early next week, the sun is lining up with the center of the galaxy. There is a lot of information available and a lot of energy available. So direct it toward conscious things that you love and want to do. There's absolutely no sense squandering this. This is like artist in a can here, and so all you need to bring is like the can opener and some discipline and some focus, and insist on getting some quiet time where you can be receptive to the information coming from your own mind. The galactic center is lined up. Well, there's a planet lined up with the galactic center right now, and that planet is Varda. Varda is the queen of heaven, Elbereth, from The Lord of the Rings. Do you remember that scene where Frodo is in big trouble? I forget, this may be in the second book, and he calls on Elbereth, and she is this ultimately benefic queen. I believe she is she's not Eru's spouse. She is, I'm drawing a blank here. It's hard for me to think of names on the fly when I'm talking. But in any event, Varda, the Queen of Heaven, is aligned with the galactic center. And so that is a slow mover, and soon the sun will align with the GC and with Varda. Also in that alignment is Neptune. So we have the moon and the sun in an opposition, square Neptune. Now I realize, for the way that I do astrology, which starts with aspects to the degree and wiggles outward gradually, to call that a tight aspect is a loose fit. But however, the sun and the moon are both applying to Neptune, and I always grant extra degrees in the orb for Neptune because it always has a very wide orb of influence. It always the perimeter, let's say the penumbra of Neptune reaches far out in either direction. That is also true of the galactic center. So what we have here, I think, is a question of spirituality versus false spirituality. These days, and I think at any time, since maybe the 1960s, when people were taking a lot of drugs and they were thinking a lot of East versus West stuff, and Alan Watts was still in business, writing consistently good stuff, and also cautioning about all this East meets West stuff. He was cautious of that, and he would know. He was originally a Buddhist priest, and then wrote extensively on Christianity and the philosophy of self-actualization, warned about all this East meets West, but all that, the problem with that is that it becomes easy to use a lot of words like non-dualism, and the current version of non-dualism is non-binary. Hi, I'm non-dualistic. I've transcended the most serious mental scourge of all of humanity, just like that. It's very easy to kind of hang out one shingle as a false prophet, and we see the warning, the urgency of needing to really discern what is true, and also the warning that is not so easy, told in the story of the squares to Neptune. And so what I would say that Varda on the galactic center is doing, first of all, is providing a kind of a condenser for the, I think, fundamentally feminine cosmic energy, very yin, maybe perhaps better to say, of the galactic center. I mean, it is broadcasting on a lot of wavelengths, but it's very difficult to see, and all of that. And so we have Varda there kind of serving as a lens, focusing the qualities of the galactic center Go as directly to source as you can. The human sources who are reliable are saying, go to source. You contain what you need. You have the information. You have the access that you need. As A Course in Miracles says, you will be told everything you need to know, but you need to be receptive. You need to ask what you need to know. You need to be aware of what you need to know. You do not need to know everything. You do not need to know that all the cardinals and all the popes and all that are part of the Freemasons, blah, blah, blah. If you're following my Facebook page, you'll see there's someone, I try to snooze them, and every 20 minutes she's got another damn post about the Freemasons. I bet she's never met a Freemason in her life, gone to a Freemason meeting, or read anything about the Freemasons. Someday I'll tell you my story of the Freemasons. Let me put a note on this chart, which I made this discovery in the office of a deceased cement baron. Masons build things. They are stone masons, right? That's where the concept comes from. And this guy was a cement baron whose mines were used to do things like build the city of New York. And I had access to his library of Masonic books. And I will not tell you what I learned now, but I promise I will tell you sometime soon. So in any event, we have Varda on the Galactic Center. Call for, ask for help. Inwardly, God does not come out of the sky on a canoe. God will speak to you from within. That is known as the Holy Spirit. This is not a Christian concept. This is much older than Christianity. So beware of false information or people who aspire to know things that they can't possibly know. How's that for tactful? When there's a T-square, which you'll see in this chart indicated in what is drawn as a square, but the T-square, Sun, Moon, Neptune, is in red. I've added a kind of a purple line to the galactic center, but the blue lines are this. When you have a T-square in the chart, the first thing to do, if you're wondering what that T-square is about, or you want extra information, is you go to serennu.com, SERENNU.com. You type in your data, you go to 90-degree sort, and you look at what is in those degrees. And in this case, that would be, my first question is, well, what's hanging out at 27 degrees of Virgo? Anything out there? Yeah. Clotho, an asteroid, an important asteroid. And that asteroid is right at 27, right now. Square the galactic center, opposite Neptune, square the moon at the time of the full moon, is about weaving the story of life. Now, I meant to check Arachne. Let's see where I was. I got a little carried away. Arachne is hanging out at 4 Libra. What's there? Well, Arachne, another weaver, a spider image. She's talking to the Capricorn, the Hunger Games cluster in early Capricorn. I'm not going to say too much about that in this edition, except to say it is manifesting in political games, and we are entering the 100-year political Olympics. We are now almost a month, a little more than a month, and 9 days or so away from the second inauguration of Donald Trump, and we are seeing a lot of politics be played. So in any event, let's stick to this Sun, Moon, Neptune, Galactic Center, Varda pattern. Well, this is saying, tell your story. Your way, by which I mean write it. Don't make up some bullshit justifying your existence. I'm saying you are in an active process of co-creating with existence, with all these planets, whatever they might be, describing what I think is some form of divine information that can be read and understood. Well, what that divine information is saying is, Clotho, one of the 3 fates, the fate of, she's the spinner, the weaver. She's the one who makes life what it is. She's the one who weaves a story of existence. What are you weaving? What is the existence that you're weaving? And I realize that part of being here in the kind of anteroom of the age of Aquarius and all this Aquarius stuff going on, as I've called it before, we are in the Aquarian era, not quite the Aquarian age. We think that everything is intractable, that it can't possibly change. There's nowhere that it could go. Our life patterns are so tightly set. You know, you have a job, a partner, and a kid, and it's like suddenly all your time is spoken for. Well, what do you do about that? Well, you start by saying that. You start by saying, yeah, you know, I've got a job, a partner, and a kid, and it seems like all my time is spoken for. What am I going to do about this? Like, okay, so you look right at the thing, and then you start to you start to work it out. All right, one of the ways you don't work it out is with alcohol, especially right now with all this square to Neptune going on. There's better things to do to work things out, and I'm sorry to be so down on alcohol. I mean, I have tremendous respect for these brewmasters and these winemakers and these houses that produce estate agaves and all this stuff. And I kind of like the stuff, really, especially all that cactus juice stuff, right? The stuff from deep in the heart of Costa Rica. But alcohol shrinks your brain. We need our brains working right now. We need every brain cell we can get right now. So, in vino veritas, I am not anybody's teetotaler, but I'm just suggesting be very careful, particularly now for two reasons. All the squares, all the aspects to Neptune, the potential for false spirituality, and finally, we have Mars retrograding into a conjunction to Vulcanus. A lot of energy that can be turned inward because Mars is retrograde, and the retrograde means turned inward, and it's about to make its second of 3 oppositions to Pluto. So nothing is settled by power struggle. There's a guy named Tom Golden who hosts the Men Are Good podcast. He's a very, very sweet guy. And his intellect is such that he is much more spiritually sensitive and emotionally sensitive. And I'm sure he is a superb therapist, which is what his job is. And he's an advocate for men. And I got an email from him that was so brilliant a couple of weeks ago, where he said, look, if you are make an agreement in your relationships, a pre-existing kind of a treaty in your relationships, that if there is ever a fight between you and your partner, that either party has the option to walk away from that fight and to reinitiate the conversation later. He said, just knowing that you are free to step away from the situation if the energy gets too hot, if it is too confrontational, if things are not going well and you suspect they might go worse, to have an agreement, a pre-existing agreement that either party can step away from the dispute. And that is their responsibility to bring it back up in the future. And this can be a real lifesaver in times when we are being so conditioned to make every last thing a matter of power, not a matter of love, not a matter of collaboration, but a matter of power. And power always means power over. And please remember this as Mars moves into the second of its oppositions to Pluto. And that takes place the first week of the year, I think sometime around the 2nd. And then there will be the third opposition when Mars is direct in the springtime. All right. Thank you for joining me today. As always, I have learned quite a bit doing this. This is really my test of whether I'm actually doing astrology. Is even now, sitting here doing pretty much astrology full time since March of 1994. March of 1994, and then I started my column in May of 95. If I learn something from doing the astrology, like really make a discovery and put together pieces that I haven't quite seen before, I know I'm doing my job. And that partly means, is it interesting? Is it fun? I send out these charts with the red marks on them. Man, it is great fun doing these things. I've got my fancy-ass EcoTank printer in the back. I work on nice heavy paper. I've got a big jar of all the pencils I need and rulers and my little pencil sharpener. And I make these charts up for me and for you. And if you want to learn how to read them, drop me a note. All right, so I am now going to take a couple hours off and then get busy on Pisces Tales from Topographic Oceans is the name of that chapter. And I will be pulling together Planet Waves FM with the lead story being the very strange chart about the murder of United Health, I think it's called, CEO Brian Thompson. All right, once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for your business and your trust. Signing off from Kingston at 4:11 p.m. Lots of love, and bye for now.